You know what? This picture reminds me of one of my most favorite books. That book was all about adventure and learning to love oneself. But apart from moral values, we also go into adventures in books which we can never experience in real life. So, let's see where our new book is going to take us. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be reading to you the story of Snow White. Now the reason I chose this book is because it's one of my most favorite fairy tales and it's also one of the most famous fairy tales, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, my mom loves Snow White.
Wow. It's one of my favorite stories too.
I know.
So let's get started.
I never get tired of hearing Snow White.
I know. Once upon a time, there was a really beautiful princess. Her name was Snow White, and she had a complexion as white as snow, which was why obviously she got her name. But her stepmother, the queen, was envious of her beauty and forced Snow White to dress and work as a servant. But this didn't stop Snow White, as she was happy all the time. Every day, the evil queen asked her magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And despite the stepmother hating Snow White, the mirror used to say, "Your stepdaughter Snow White is still the most beautiful." Fed up with this answer, the cruel stepmother ordered a hunter to take Snow White to a forest and to kill her there. She said to the hunter, "Take this chest and bring the princess in it." But the hunter was really kind and he felt sorry for Snow White and he allowed her to escape. Snow White was really exhausted after having walked in the forest for a long time. But to her luck, all of a sudden, the young princess found a strange little house. Inside the house, nobody was there. Since it was a little untidy and dirty, Snow White decided to clean it because she loves stuff to be spick and span.
You know what? Snow White is lucky that the house is not a house of some evil witch or something.
I know.
Yes.
I mean, because it's deep in the forest,
I mean,
right?
who hasn't heard of stranger danger?
Yeah.
I think she was too kind.
Yeah, she's too trusting.
The owners of the house were in fact 7 dwarves. They were magical creatures, and luckily they liked Snow White so much that they instantly became friendly with her and asked her to live with them. So Snow White was happy for a long time in the house of the dwarves, and every day the dwarves used to warn her to not let anybody inside because they had heard of what had happened to her. One day, however, the evil queen asked her mirror again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" When the mirror told her it was Snow White, she went berserk. "That hunter brought a fake heart to me," she exclaimed, "but now I will personally take care of Snow White." Then she transformed into an old woman. Meanwhile, unaware of the evil queen's plans, Snow White said goodbye to her friends, just like every other morning. Hi ho, we're going to work," the dwarfs sang, and the princess wished them a nice day, one by one, and bid them farewell. Soon after, the stepmother rang the bell of the little house, and she offered Snow White a temptingly red apple.
See, stranger danger.
I know.
She's accepting the apple.
At
Maybe-
first, yeah,
That's okay, I can go.
you continue.
Okay. Maybe the apple was poisonous or something, because you never know.
I know, it's with strangers, right? At first, Snow White paid heed to the dwarf's warning, but soon, since the old woman, the evil queen in the guise of an old woman, she tempted her so much that Snow White finally agreed. Unaware that the apple was poisoned, Snow White took a bite of the fruit and immediately fell unconscious on the ground. When the dwarfs came back from work, they were horrified. What are we going to do now? They wondered, because they thought that Snow White was dead. Finally, after hours and hours of tears, they decided to build a glass urn, and inside it, they put Snow White.
You know what? Here the dwarves are like really sad, and at the same time they managed to build a really beautiful glass urn. So this shows that they are very dedicated to their work and that they are willing to put all their heart for Snow White.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
There's 7 dwarves. Dwarves, sorry.
Yeah.
And they're small. How could they live a big human and put
7.
her in
7.
I know there's 7.
You know what they say? Strength and unity.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you can break one stick, but then you can't break several
Many sticks
sticks,
if they're
right? So
bound together, right?
maybe that's what it shows. Even I mean, you are right. You are very right.
Yeah.
It must have been very hard for them, but then their love and
Yeah, they must have
dedication
felt
towards
really
Snow
sad.
White.
Looks like they
They
love Snow White
actually
a
did.
lot.
Yeah.
Yes. So that gave them the strength. That gave them additional and depending strength to carry Snow White, I guess.
Exactly. And when they were having Snow White's funeral, a young prince reached the area and seeing the girl in the urn, seeing Snow White, he instantly liked her. Please don't bury that urn, he pleaded with the dwarves. Let me take her to the palace. And then when they moved the urn, the apple slice which was stuck in Snow White's throat came out. And as it turned out, it was not actually like she was poisoned. It just so happened that she choked because the apple slice got stuck in her throat and Snow White came back to life.
I think there's a big problem in this story. Can you see on the page?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, in this case also, like for starters, we know that Snow White was not aware of stranger danger. Yeah. She went into the dwarf's house. She was safe, thank God. Second time, she got into trouble because of her stepmother. And this time, the prince, for all he knows, it is this evil stepmother who is trying to do something, who is in disguise. So even he is not aware of stranger danger.
Yeah.
I think, in fairy tales we should give one nice lesson.
Exactly.
Yes.
Danger.
So, the beautiful princess, Snow White, came back to life. And then when the prince heard about all that had happened in the kingdom, they returned to the kingdom and finally they punished the evil stepmother. And since then, joy reigned over the kingdom. All of them shifted to the princess's palace, and the young couple remained friends forever and lived happily ever after.
Hey, was that sunglasses for the dwarf?
I know, right? One of them is
Yeah.
actually wearing the sunglasses. Okay, so we have finished with our story, but don't go anywhere because we'll be back after a short break to discuss the story. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, friends. And now I'm just gonna tell you my favorite character is actually Snow White. I love her so much because she was kind and she loves the animals just like me. Well, I love the animals too.
And you know what? In this story, actually, we learn that, there are some flaws, but then there are flaws for everything. That they're not careful of stranger danger.
Yeah.
But in the end, what we actually realize is that kindness and compassion are always paid. It's always said one good deed is always paid with another good deed, no matter what. And we also know that in the story, in actual story, that Snow White does not really agree to, get her stepmother punished very severely, and that shows another thing of her kindness and compassion. It's like you don't have to be really bad towards someone, because if you are like that, then what's the difference between that person and you? So in this world, if we want to make a change, who better than us to make that change?
Okay, so we are finished with our episode for today, and always remember, what we know is only a drop. What we don't know is an ocean. So let us strive to read more books and collect many more glimmering drops of knowledge. And in that process, collect a lot of drops to make a huge ocean of knowledge in our mind. Bye!
Goodbye!
Bye.